stream name. Hey peeps, it's me, Anne, here with Reaper Pro Tips on this wonderful Wednesday morning. Mostly wonderful, Kiri. We're running a little late today, so sorry for the 5-minute late start. Are you ready, little dog? She was squeaking her ball a second ago, but she just gets really shy about it when we're actually on stream. I suppose I should be thankful for that, right? But yes, Disembodied Voice Justin is once again hauled off to a ReaperCon meeting. They wrapped him in chains and forcibly hauled him out of the room, I'm sure. I heard the clinking. So yes, he's in meetings for ReaperCon for the technical side of things today. So we will not have a Justin unless there's an emergency or until, maybe later. Numbat, thank you for the sub. I was going to say, I had Justin's promising to check the subs, but he didn't do an actual ad, but at a glance, we're around 91. So now we're around 92. So that's only 8 from the AMA and Big Dragon. I hope it's a Big Dragon. I hope there's a Big Dragon left. AMA and big giveaway. So yes, we're almost there. It didn't take us that long, actually. Like, I didn't do the last AMA that long ago, so that's really cool. We're all happy about that. Thank you, everybody who came out for my personal stream last night. I'm going to do another one today around, probably around 2:30 Central. I feel pretty good, so I'm thinking I want to. Not sure if I'm going to do Samurai Girl or Valkyrie Girl. I'm trying to decide. It'll be something. But yeah. Yes, we're so close to the AMA. Oh, jeez, Numbat. I knew that was going to happen. I knew the minute I told you guys we were like 10 away that somebody was going to drop a sub bomb. Thank you, Numbat. You are the best. Yes, but you were lurking a bit in there yesterday. Yeah, I ended up explaining a lot to people yesterday, so I didn't get as much work done as I wanted to, but I can actually show you guys here. Hold on. I did actually finish doing all my little swirlies on my backdrop that I was working on yesterday. So that's cool because now I can kind of finish out this backdrop, add the pink to the clouds, and then I can actually attach her to it, which is great because then I can attach her to her plinth, and then I can hold the plinth while I'm painting her. So yeah, so that was what I was doing yesterday on my personal stream. But yeah, it's pretty. It's for the samurai. It's her backdrop. So yeah, she goes on there in the clouds. It's kind of like a stained glass window almost behind her. I really like it. So yeah, I want to put a little bit of pink in the clouds up top, kind of like I did this middle one. And then we're thinking about some white freehand also in the cloud tops. So yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, that's fine, Coos. I check my Discord mostly like right after my stream in the mornings. Like I have my work schedule set up, and my email and Discord check is right after streaming in the morning. So don't worry about it. I wouldn't have seen it last night anyway. Aw, thanks. Thanks, Numbat. I really appreciate that. Yeah, I'm interested to see how the Twitch thing goes for me personally, right? Like, it goes really well here on my stream for Reaper. I'm really always very grateful. I have a lot of gratitude to all of you who always tune in the morning to watch me. So thank you very much. Yeah, we'll see how my own personal stream goes. I mean, when you're freelancing, any income stream is welcome, right? So it's all these little things add up. Even if I only get like $100 every 2 months from Twitch, that's still something. It keeps Kiri and dog biscuits. Her food is expensive. This little dogling, she totally takes a large budget every month. So, yeah. Hey, you can always push more contrast. Hi, Generos. How's it going? Hey, Stephen Phillip. Glad to see you all. Yeah, you can't spend all day here in Ara. No, I totally get it. There are so many great painters, and you already show up for my morning show, so it's not like you don't get to absorb and stuff. And I do show stuff that I'm working on privately every once in a while here on Reaper, so, you get the best of all worlds. It's all good. I'm just happy you're here in the morning. I am happy that anybody is here whenever they can manage it. Oh, yeah, he's intermediate for the OSL or for the bust class, Gergi? OSL, yeah. Yeah, I would say, because it is a conceptual technique. I was discussing this actually a little bit on my stream Or was it this morning? Or was it in the morning stream yesterday? I don't remember, but people are asking what's the difference between like a basic and intermediate level. And we talked about it a bit. But really the intermediate level is, are you starting to try to blend things? Like, are you making an attempt at layering? Are you starting to grok it? And then you move from basic, which really is dry brush, is base coat, washes. Dry brushes are simple highlights. And once you move into like looking at paint consistency and brush stroke, that's when you move into that intermediate tier. It's just thinking about those things and trying to utilize them. It doesn't matter if you're good at them yet. You don't have to be good at them to be intermediate. If you're really good at layering and glazing, then you're in advanced. So that sort of thing is how we do it. Yeah, the bust is going to definitely be advanced. I mean, I might even take the bust class because the way that David sets stuff up is so different from the way I set stuff up. It would be useful. Hey, Twitchdoma, how's it going? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, that's the really nice thing. I mean, actually, I don't know. David's OSL class will be after the fact, but the bust class is going to only be live in ReaperCon, I think. Remember, only the Twitch classes go up for posterity. And the other stuff you gotta watch it real time. So that's just kind of a compromise so that we could have some free forever programming so that people could get an idea what ReaperCon was like and maybe come in the future. But we didn't want everything to be free forever because a lot of us, make money on the side from our work. Oh, wow, I just broke my glasses. Well, that's silly. It's a good thing I've got a backup pair. I'm going to have to order more reading glasses. Let's get out the emergency backup glasses. They're super cheap reading glasses, so they do bust, and I do tend to drop them a lot. So, yeah. I also have bifocals, but I find they're not quite as good as these guys. They're not quite as high magnification. I use a three times magnification reading glasses. Thanks, guys. Yeah, we're working on it. So what I ran into, guys, now is remember I always tell you that things look different once you get everything blocked in. And what I'm running into now, butt class. Oh, Aaron's bust class is advanced too? Yeah, it makes sense. Because when you're dealing with busts, what you're dealing with is textures, is painting textures. And that's definitely an advanced technique. And you need to have some layering chops in order to do it. If you try to throw a more basic painter, a basic or intermediate or beginning intermediate, lower level intermediate painter into those classes, they end up being very frustrated because they just don't have the skill set yet. And I've experienced this directly with a couple of painters who came to, say, Sergio's class or Kirill's, especially Kirill's class, which was a textures class and very high end, is they ended up just being frustrated and feeling like they didn't get a lot out of the class. So we want to avoid that if possible. So when you see that advanced label, take it seriously. If you aren't solid in your layering and glazing, I would say, yeah, probably not taking an advanced class. Yeah, I know, Gergie. That's something that I thought of and brought up right after they did it, is that for now, in this country alone, people who just can't make it. But this is also a big boon to our international fans, right? Because they don't get to come to ReaperCon usually. It would be very expensive for most of them to come. So this way they can come. So I'm going to essentially, guys, I think I'm going to be blocking in my gold on this morning. I'm going to figure out what should be gold, what should be red, and start blocking in some other stuff, because I'm not going to be able to really tell, while I've got these light gray sections, how this is all going to look. So if I at least block in my base, or my shadow base as I call it, which is just one step down, then I will be able to make more of a judgment call on whether the sword is looking really good or not. Oh yeah. Well, what's great about reviewing basics and intermediates and just fundamentals, I should say, not reviewing the basics, but reviewing your fundamentals, right? Going back to fundamentals, is that somebody's always got a new take on it, right? So you always can run into that person who's just got a different way of thinking about it that actually helps you with your process. And that's always really rewarding. Discovering new things about a technique that you thought you had pretty much in your wheelhouse is always fun. Alrighty, so what I do for these guys, let's see, I should have used rich leather for that. Oh well, tough. So guys, we're going to be starting with a really, really saturated gold today. lately I like using the Bones browns because they're really odd browns for things like leather, or they can be. They've got a lot of yellow in them, and this one's greenish and this one's orangish. But they're really are really good for realistic, like, oiled leather, and they're really good for NMM gold. These are really good base coats for NMM gold, and rich leather can also be a great mid-tone for NMM bronze. In fact, if you look at the breastplate on the samurai here, where I've got those golden tones coming in, that is entirely rich leather. So this bronze breastplate, or we want it to look kind of like a bronze, is based around rich leather. It's black and brown and rich leather, and we're slowly bringing it up. So do not underestimate these browns. Even though they're a little transparent, and it may seem to you like they are maybe a little weird, they're not a straightforward brown like russet brown or muddy brown. Nonetheless, they have extremely important uses in painting, in my opinion. So, yeah, if you don't travel well. But yeah. Yeah. Well, it's good that you got to come out though, Shadow Raven. I really do feel like it's a great. You can spell fundamentals without fun. Yes. Yeah, Ontario. Well, it's doable. I mean, it's a long drive. Can never have too many browns, right? And the browns that are in Bones are weird ones. So maybe I should do a PDF for my Patreon. I did the Pathfinder weird greens. Maybe I should do the Bones weird browns. Just because I am really in love with these guys. I wasn't when they first came out. I'm like, oh, those are so weird. What would I ever use that for? And then I realized that they were awesome NMM colors. So I'm going to do kind of a 50-50 mix of the rich leather and the polished leather for my base for this gold. The polished leather is going to be used further in highlighting, but I want a little bit darker. When I start with NMM, I actually like to go with a mid-dark, is what I'll call it. And you guys may have noticed this, because like when I do my silver or steel, I could go with rainy gray, which is a straight up, it's a decent middle gray, but instead I go a step that's a little bit darker, the cloudy gray. Actually, I'm really curious to see. I think cloudy gray is about a 60% gray, and I do have a grayscale here on my handy color wheel. Remember, those of you who watched my my video on this, maybe remember that one of the things I highlighted about the color wheel is that there's a grayscale. So if you ever wonder what's a 50% gray and what's not, you could swatch out these suckers and hold them up against color wheel and kind of figure out where they are on the light and dark scale. So I think that we're about at a 60% gray. If I hold it up next to the thing, I think it's about that. Like, once it dries, it does dry darker. It looks like it's lighter right here, but remember the bottle is a frosted, and so that's going to punch it up. If I had to guess, I'd guess it's about a 60% gray when it's dark. You need color wheels. You can get them really cheap off of Amazon. I always recommend this one. I got free from, I think when I did a Kickstarter, I got this one free from Scale 75, but you can brand them. But the Pocket Color Wheel is the one that I recommend. It's from the Color Wheel Company, the people who first did these. But you can get these on Amazon for $2, $2.50, something like that. Dick Blick. Yeah, whatever. You can get them anywhere, but they are really useful for this sort of thing. So I would say, so I tend to go with a mid-dark for NMM. I like to be able to bring up my highlights really strongly, and I like to be able to introduce my shadows without having to fight with the blending. So I pretty much am trying to make it really easy for myself to just put shadows in without having to worry about blending too much, which is why I start a little darker, not quite in the middle as I could. Because this rainy gray is more like a 50% gray, 40 to 50% gray, and a lot of people might start with that, but I really like starting a little bit darker. And also, I think, remember, I tend to have a problem sometimes pushing my shadows, so starting a little bit darker with my NMM, again, forces me to do that. So I can't accidentally fall back into doing my old mistakes. So let's see. So and actually I'm trying an experiment today. It's weird because normally I would recommend going like opposite, but I kind of want a lot of reds and reddish colors in this model. So for a shadow color, I'm actually going to go with some ruddy leather and see what I can do and see if that's a little bit too jarring or if it works. So I've got my ruddy leather, And then I've got my mixture of half and half rich leather and polished leather, and then I've got pure polished leather. Now, one of the things I'm going to do, though, is I want this to be really bright, because so far all of these colors are really vibrant, right? So we have to think about that then with the NMM. If we go too muted with the NMM, it's not going to look gold. And to offset that and to punch up my NMM saturation for gold further, I'm going to add a drop of lantern yellow. Starting at, sometimes I will to my midtone. I think I'm going to leave my midtone as is, but I'm definitely going to add a drop to this polished leather. And that's going to punch up our saturation. Base. Yeah, sorry, not best. Well, for me, best. Ash and blue is your base armor color. Yeah, I mean... Yeah, it would look too blue, Moonglooms, because Ashen really has a ton of blue in it. What I do is mix Ashen with Cloudy Gray 50-50. That'll cut it down. It makes it so you can keep your unique colors, because that's part of your style, which you definitely want to preserve. But if you find that it looks too blue, try a 50-50 with Ashen and Cloudy Gray and go from there. See how that does for you. It should still give you that characteristic blueness that you are desiring. And that is characteristic of your paint jobs now, but it may look a little less blue if you're afraid that you're going too blue on it, especially because that sounds like you're going a bit blue in your shadows, which can be, with NMM, it can be a little dicey. You definitely want the sky color with the highlights. Yeah, because the purpose of the blue is really to kind of give that feeling that it's reflecting skylight. And it can work in some shadows, depending on the time of day and where the model is, but it's more common to go a little warmer with your shadows, like greens and browns, or grays if you're in the city, grays and browns. In your shadows with NMM, you can suggest your surrounding colors, so... Alright, so I'm keeping my paint thicker for my base coat, obviously. And I'm going a little bit thinner with the other ones. This is about a 4-to-1, I think, my base color. Just going to mix this up. Didn't clean out my palette yesterday, so I still have dried paint, but it will work. Hello, planer. How's it going? Justin has been dragged away by wild horses to a ReaperCon tech meeting planer, so he's missed your high, but he will get it eventually. Alrighty, so let's go and do S-word. And then actually I'm going to test this in another way too. The other thing I need to worry about is if I'm going to put a lot of gold, say, around his face, I want to make sure that it goes with these colors. So let's get this in focus. 1 second. Let's make sure we are focusing. So we have this lovely camera. We may as well take advantage of it. So I was originally thinking that I might go gold with the plate around his face. And especially on the outside of these little plates down here, they look like they've got kind of definitely a gold edge around them. Yeah, maybe once we have it. I mean, maybe once we have it in the system, Gurgi, we might consider doing a couple of online classes. It's hard to say. I mean, we'd probably have to monetize it because when we're renting the convention center, it is extremely expensive. And so the classes really pay a huge amount of what the cost is to put on a ReaperCon. So yeah. But yeah, so we might, I don't know. I mean, I'm not in the meetings, so I can't carry that suggestion, but we'll see. So this is a very vibrant color. Look at how intense that sucker is. But I feel like I need that because this is so bright. So I'm thinking, if anything, I may be a little close to my orange colors here, but this is just the base coat, and so it is going to change and come up. It's going to go much more yellow. I could go steel with this, but I think the gray just wouldn't work so well against the fire colors. I want this piece to be warm. He's a very warm piece. What's up, Kiri? Can't you settle down? Hi, yeah. Restless dog is restless. Are you restless, dog? Hi. Can you settle? She's just like, she's like, but I want to go out and like, can you look at the camera? Where's my doglet? Oh, 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 there's dog face. Dog face. Ah, she ran away. Sorry. Sorry, driving the bus very very haphazardly. But I was trying to get her on the camera because she actually was close for once. But I'm bad at aiming the camera. Yeah, it does look like caramel, doesn't it? You're right. Hello, everybody. Yeah, pup. She wants to go back to the beach. Yes. Well, so do I. I was just thinking about that the other day because it's supposed to be in the 90s heading into the weekend here, I think, or upper 80s. Quite warm for California, for Northern California. So I was thinking, but you know, if I'm thinking it, then so are 60 zillion other people of going down to Santa Cruz. We went earlier, of course, and it was a much more off season, so we didn't have to dodge too many people. But I imagine that now that's different. So we've got that blocking in. It is a bit different from our orange. It is going to make our orange look orangier. Like the fact that we're bringing in gold and that we're planning to go up pretty strongly yellow is going to mean that this is going to look a lot more orange. Yes, I moved out here. I moved to Mountain View, Jessie Boo, just back in April because I wanted to be with my guys. So Reaper kept me on as a remote employee to do these streams. And Sadie took over the paint department. And so I'm living actually, and believe it or not, I was born in Mountain View. So I moved back to the town I was born in, which was crazy, and I did not plan it this way. Yeah, cool. Yeah, I'm hoping once the pandemic is a little bit more under control, Jessie, that I'll be doing some classes, like local classes, seminars. Where is my knife? I just noticed I missed a bit of a mold thingy. There we go. Just take that off. But yeah, I always wanted to do some seminars once I got out here, but I haven't, because of pandemic land, I have not been able to. So yeah, once things are a little bit more inoculated, perhaps, we'll be able to start doing seminars again. Hello, everybody. Oh, is John in there now? Hello, hello. Everybody is super excited for ReaperCon. That's great to hear. I also am excited for ReaperCon. I'm interested to see how how everything goes down online. I know that, you know, since I'm just doing Twitch, I'm pretty sure I know that my stuff's going to go well. I am going to, probably for my class, I am going to be not looking at chat as much. I don't know. I picked a subject that's pretty elementary and pretty easy to break down. So maybe I can still do a lot of chat, but I do want to make sure that we cover everything in our hour and a half of my class for ReaperCon. So sometimes that means a little less chat, a little more concentration on Anne's side. Because, I can go down the bunny holes with the best of them. Painting is full of bunny holes. There we go. So now we got a nice base color on there. It does look like caramel here, right? Inara has it. I'm doing how to thin Master Series paints tester. So I'm essentially taking a liner and a blue and a skin tone and white, all different types of paints with different bases and different qualities of transparency. And we're going to break down like what we can do with each of those paints at various levels of thinness. Like how much you have to thin white to layer with it. How much do you have to, how much do you have to thin blue to get a glaze? All that sort of thing. And that should give us some benchmarks because that's what people ask me for a lot. So that's what I'm planning to do. And since it's on Twitch, it will be up for posterity. It'll be up forever. So it's something that I can then link to from the Patreon and stuff like that. Oh, Image, I always outline for my classes. I have bullet points that I have to hit. Otherwise, it's hard. It's easy to get. You can always get a student who needs extra help, and then you have to help them, and you can get off topic. But you have to, if you have bullet points and time frames, you can stick to stuff. But yeah, online it's a little bit easier, I think, because I can tell people, hey guys, we got to get through the subject matter. Then I'll take questions. So yeah. Let's see here. Yeah, I'll need to look and save the link for mine as well, Coos, just so I can give people when people ask me about thinning, I can give them a link and say, watch my ReaperCon class. That's kind of why I did this, so that I would have that. And that way people have a tutorial on how to do it and how to look at it and what kinds of things to try. So it is a very basic class. Technically, it's for all levels. So, all right, now I have to look at where my light is coming from. This is always fun. So I'm going to actually activate my camera light, and I'm going to tilt my thing, and I'm going to kind of look at where my highlights are falling. Obviously, it's going to fall up on this side. We're going to get a shadow right under this edge, so I can take my ruddy leather and kind of block that in. So this edge is going to have a shadow. And down here is going to have a shadow. So this is the time for me to kind of block in those shadows. Yes, lots of talk of swag. I know you guys are all so... Yes, this is true. Although I do hope I get enough people actually live watching my class to have enough questions. Otherwise, it's just me talking into a vacuum. Oh, I still have a little bit of wet paint there, so I need to wait. But I can get the inside of that, which is definitely going to be dark. So essentially, I'm using my overhead light source to shine on the model and kind of look at where my highlights and shadows fall. And then we're going to get artistic with some of it. And take a few liberties with highlights and shadows just to break up this huge area. I don't know where the schedule is, Mathophile, because I've never had to look it up. It was emailed to me. So I am unsure, but I bet somebody in chat here could tell you. Where's the ReaperCon schedule currently, guys? And does it have the Twitch classes up on it yet, or is it still just Zoom? I'm going to thin this more. And I think I'm going to need some black and brown, too. Because black and brown is just so utilitarian. It does. ReaperConLive.com is where you find the schedule, which makes sense. Yeah, I did an early class because one of the things that people always asked for back in the day, guys, was that the beginner level and intermediate level programming, a lot of it be at the start of the con, and then the more advanced stuff be at the end of the con. And sometimes we just aren't able to do that, but it does make sense if you're an intermediate painter to have the fundamentals first and then graduate to more advanced stuff as the con goes on. And so that's why I put my class so early. I also am doing my normal stream on Friday morning. So this show will be live on Friday morning of ReaperCon, and I think John is sending me a model to paint during that. That is a ReaperCon model. Okay, cool. Yeah, exactly. That's kind of what I was going for, Twistoma. That's what we did yesterday, was make this glowy edge, like, kind of going on where the lightest of the lava is. So it's like the fire energy awesome sword. I am really liking how this is turning out, so that's why we're spending a fair bit of time on it. Let's see here. And I'll have to touch up the rub-offs on his hand at some point, but right now I'll just kind of dab over them. All right, not too worried about rub off at this point. All right, so we want shadow. Ah, that's right, very, very strong. I always forget how strong black and brown is until I try to paint it on in a thin layer, and I'm reminded that I need to thin it a lot more. I think everything's free, Mathophile. Everything online is free, as far as I know. So I'm just going to pretty much map in some shadows, bring in my rich leather and polished leather mix to blend in that edge, and get that shadow starting to go on. And then I need another shadow down here. Wherever you're going to have an edge where the edge tilts away from your eyes, that's where you're going to have that dark shadow. So for him, the sword is actually tilted a little bit more. I'm just assuming kind of a roundabout light source, so I'm going to paint it as if. But we've got some facets going on up here too. And these facets are definitely facing the light more. So I'm going to use my ruddy leather to do the shadow for these upward facing areas. So it's not as dark. You wouldn't get as dark a shadow facing upward, because there's the various facets on this sword. So we've got actually concentric facets, which makes it interesting. So I'm going to put essentially a more subtle shadow here, and I'm probably going to minimize it as I go on. But you guys can see that line there that I'm putting in this double line up here. And the ruddy leather lets me get that softer shadow in, since it is a little bit more translucent than the black and brown, and of course it's a lighter color in general, not as much black. So we're starting to set up the NMMs. Thank you for the sub, Magnetic Gumby. Awesome. Yeah, definitely. I mean, we're monetizing slightly by doing the class kits, right? So I mean, we do need to pay for some stuff. Like, we need to pay for Justin's hours. Justin and John have been busting their butts on trying to make this ReaperCon live thing work. So that is the monetization, is kind of like, we are having to put a lot of resources. I mean, look at all the meetings there are. That takes Reaper personnel like off the floor, out of departments, right? So we have to have some monetization so that we can rationalize having some of our top personnel totally diverted down to ReaperCon. I had to deal with this the other day because my national dog show is also going virtual this year for my dog organization, and one of the breeders was like, "Oh, but there is no national. I didn't think you had to do any work." And I'm just like, it's just as much work, if not more, because it's the first time we've done this. Just because it's virtual doesn't mean there's not a lot of work involved. Yeah, Monday is a holiday. We'll see how much demand there is. I know a lot of people before, we always left Monday free because we were like, people had to travel, right? But now you don't have to travel. All right, so it's time to get some highlights going on here. Let me just get a little bit more of the shadows here. Kiri, am I just too peppy for you today? Or is David doing stuff out there and you want to go and see him? Herding dog wants to herd. You didn't herd him out of bed this morning. Hey, Kiri dog, what's up? Come on. Kiri dog, what's up? Hey, come here. Get pettins. My distractible dog. Hello, what's all the distraction this morning, little girl? Huh? Can you settle? We still have a lot of show to go, Kier. We got almost an hour. She's like, oh, I guess. I'm just going to detach Mr. Giant from his sword so I can work on it a little bit easier. Hey, D-Salt, thank you for that. Oh, two months. Awesome. 2 months of good painting. Awesome. Fantastic. Yeah, I mean, Monday, everybody's brain is mush, right? So I might hang out in my Artist Alley thing on Monday. Actually, what I might do is do some, if we don't have a lot of programming up, I might do some of my own streaming. We'll see. They might have me do pro tips on that Monday. Also, I might be doing this show Monday. It really depends on whether a teacher steps forward who wants a class during this time frame. So if there's a teacher, that takes precedence over established Twitch programming. But if we don't have an instructor step forward who wants to teach in this time frame, then I can do my show. That's pretty much what happened Friday. Which is cool because I like doing my show. All right, so again, we're doing that double-faceted thing down here because there's these bevels on this sword. So to make them stand out, I'm dropping a shadow right behind them. And then I can grab some of my base coat and kind of blend that in. I can wet blend it. And this is blocking in. We're probably going to change these shadows a bit as they go. But at first I'm blocking in my NMM basics. And my basics say that wherever there's a highlight, there's going to be a shadow just under or behind it. And so for now, I'm looking at each of these little beveled edges that might catch the light, and I am looking at where the shadows will fall. So as I turn the blade, there's going to be a highlight, and then there'll be a slight shadow under it because this faces up. Then there's going to be a highlight here, and it's going to drop, the surface drops off, you're going to get a shadow under it, and it's going to blend back up to a highlight, and then there's a shadow. This alternation of light and shadow is very important for something to look shiny. If you do not have it, it will not look shiny. Your surface will look like stone or something. Oh yeah, the airbrush will be available during ReaperCon, pre-sales essentially, in a very simple format, just like pretty much airbrush in special bag. And then the actual product, I believe, goes on sale 2 months after ReaperCon. Yeah, I guess it could be until Reaper is ready to do a release, and the estimate is like November or something. Just in time for Christmas. I want one. After watching Michael, if you guys haven't watched Clever Crow's show from yesterday, he's using it, and he talks about it, and makes me want one. So what I can do now is figure out some bands of light and shadow for this big flat area. So there's some runes here, so I do have to pay attention to that, and I have to figure out what I'm going to do with these runes. That was a little bit too much of a smudge. Too much smudge! I didn't clear off my brush like I should have. So there's various runes and shapes that are etched into the surface here, and there and there. So probably the first thing I want to do before I even tackle this surface is to take some really dark paint and outline those. So I may want to grab some walnut. Not black. I don't want anything that harsh. Brown liner would also be a good call. Walnut, there it is. Yeah, so we want to make those runes also catch the light and have some reflection. If I really want to, I could try to do those glowing as well. But then the thing about doing them glowing, or at least doing all of them glowing, is that then they're fighting. This ends up being almost the same color as some of this. So I don't necessarily want that. What I may do, which is kind of an interesting idea, is to make the runes dark back here, but then as they go toward the sword, make them lighting up. That could be fun, and it would make sense, right? Oh, Swillow, thank you for the sub. 14 months, dang. Nice. That's a lot of Prime sub. Thank you. Yeah, that's the thing, is a lot of instructors are kind of petering in, right? We're slowly, this happens with ReaperCon. It slowly fills up. Like, if you try, herding artists is herding cats, really. I'm going to grab some walnut. I'm going to drop just a little water into it because I need it to go smoothly into these little thin lines. And that means you need to thin your paint. Even brown liner. Like, liners are a little bit thinner and smoother out of the bottle. But I would still do like a 6-to-1 paint to water if I was doing these little thin lines. I just put a little bit of water into it. With walnut, it's more like a 3-to-1. Because walnut itself is very high coverage and very, very, it's a very thick paint. So a little bit more water and it's still going to cover just fine. So runes and things like this, and I talked a little bit about yesterday about how my backdrop that I was working on in my own stream was a great exercise for brush control, right? Because you're trying to trace all of these lines, some of which are sculpted into the backdrop. So when you're dealing with that, or things like runes, or details like this that are all sculpted into the backdrop, giants are actually a great exercise for brush control. All these fire giants, because they've got these great like triangular areas and angular runes, and like his cape is all like triangles, that makes them a bit easier. I mean, it makes it easier to practice your brush control because it gives you a lot of good shapes and forms to do that on. No, just water. Sandacles, I made these paints tube thin with water. I really did. Wow. Okay, so we got some weird, there's a little bit of noise down here on these runes. I'm trying to see. Looks like we've got that and that. Okay. It's a little bit indistinct. The runes got a little bit indistinct down here, probably because of the molding process. So I will have to probably draw those on and kind of hope that I'm drawing them on like they should be. But that's all right. Yeah, I mean, there's flow improver already added to Reaper Paint. So, that essentially makes it very, very thinnable. And the fact that we don't use a very heavy, goopy base means that you can thin it quite well just with water. So when you're doing this sort of thing, set it up so that the model's angle makes sense to keep your hand at a comfortable angle. You never want to be doing this stuff with your hand all cramped or at an awkward angle. You're not going to get any value out of it if you do. If you keep your hand at a comfortable, relaxed angle when you're doing things like, trying to do freehand like this or filling in small details, here, let me get close. That gives you the most benefit because your hand, what you're trying to develop with brush control is muscle memory. So your muscle memory is going to build if you can keep your hand at the same angle and do the same stroke. It's going to build a lot faster. And to do that, I try not to move my brush any more than, say, a 90-degree arc, or maybe even less. I want to have it so that I'm always doing the same, close to the same brush stroke. And that's how you build the brush control to do things like eyeballs and buckles. The more you do this, the less shaking you're going to get because your muscle memory is going to remember the stroke. Don't worry if you get a little outside the line like I did there. I can touch it up. And let's see, this is like a backwards N. Up. And when you try to paint and the paint doesn't come off your brush, that means you need more water. So if you're using slightly thicker paint here, what you can do is rinse out your brush and don't rub all the water off of it. Just kind of squeeze it out so the brush itself is still damp. Then dip it into the water, into the paint again. What that does is creates fluid back in the body of this brush that's going to keep the paint a little bit wetter as time goes on. Whereas if you've got a dry brush and you put paint in it, that demarcation area where the paint and the dry fibers come together is going to dry out first. Your paint will dry out slightly faster. Whereas if you have a little bit, you can see I've got a little bit of moisture in this brush, right? See that water? See that it's got a little bit of moisture? That keeps this functional for longer. Yeah, I don't use medium anymore. With non-Reaper paints, I will add some Reaper Flow Improver. Dandocles, always. I doctor anything non-Reaper. I doctor because I know what I want. I want Flow Improver in the paint, and that's what MSP gives me. And so any other paint, I have to add Flow Improver to. Let's see here. Once again, you got to get to a comfortable angle. Even if you have to move the model around a lot, that's fine. You should. That's why it helps with smaller models to have them on something that you can hold comfortably. But you want to just practice. This is good practice, is what this is. And don't worry if you fudge it. I fudged it there, but it's not a big deal. I can just come in with my base coat. Yeah, I mean, Vallejo paints, I had to thin. Do you know, Mathophile? Vallejo is the reason that Master Series is so easy to thin. It is the reason, because I used a lot of Vallejo paint back in the day, before I made this paint line. And it annoyed the bejeebus out of me that I had to put a crap ton of water in to get to the point where I could layer. And so when I was given the opportunity to design my own paint line, the first thing I wanted to do was make a paint line that you didn't have to sit and add water and water and water and water to get it to do what you wanted to. We do so many thinned paint applications when we work with miniatures that it seemed really dumb to me to have a paint that had absolute coverage but that you had to sit and work with for ages to get it to the level where you wanted it otherwise. So that's why Master Series has a medium body and not a heavy body. So that it gets to the level of thinning that you need it to get to faster. Less work for you. And yes, I would definitely add Flow Improver to Vallejo. Vallejo desperately needs Flow Improver, in my opinion, to be workable. That's only my opinion now. Some people may disagree. And they wouldn't be wrong, for themselves. But for me, let's see, this is where sometimes the really shallow detail like this makes it really hard to see what's going on, but I think that's got a little tail there, and then we've got like 3 lines and one of them is connected. These are based on real runes, so I recognize some of them, but others are different. Got a little bit of a wobbly line there. Wobbly lines are okay as long as you've got the line. You can go back in and fill them in. I think the sword is saying hi in reverse, guys. I'm pretty sure it is. This would be par for the course for some of our sculptors. Well, one thing you can do, Mathophile, is pre-thin it. I always, if I have a couple of Vallejo colors, just because there are some colors that they have like pigments for that are different from what MSP has. There's still a couple of Vallejo colors that I really like the color. So what you can do is open up the top and add water in until you can't add any more, and then put a couple of beads in it or whatever and shake the bejeebus out of it. That'll pre-thin it a little bit. I usually will add flow improver at that time too, because like I said, I doctor all my paints. I have a funny story for you guys, actually. I used to work for Games Workshop, right? I worked for their corporate, but I also, when I moved back to Wisconsin temporarily before I came down here, I also worked at their Gurney Mills store. And, you do a lot of painting as a GW employee to work on store models. And I doctored all of our GW paint, like all the store paint. I put flow improver and slow dry in it so that it would actually work better. When I left, I heard complaints from the store employees because they ran out of the paints I'd doctored and they had to open a new bottle and it wasn't as good. I'm evil. Evil! And good. Very good. But yeah. Yeah, I mean, Liquitex or Winsor & Newton flow improvers tend to last forever. There's some differences between them. I haven't used a lot of the Liquitex. I used to use the Winsor & Newton. Yeah, Garrett's got it. You've got to doctor it. Yeah, it goes a long way, but yet it doesn't, Garrett, because that's the problem, is also that it doesn't have quite the shelf life of Master Series unless you keep it well shaken. Any shaking will keep any acrylic paint good. So in a Vallejo's case, the danger is evaporation, because it's already a thick paint, and it also is settling out because it's got a heavy resin. To keep Vallejo paints good over time, make sure that you shake them regularly. I'd say once a year. Once every 2 years at the absolute, I would say. Especially for the oranges and yellows. I've noticed this problem in the oranges and yellows more than other colors. For some reason. Yeah, I mean, I don't own any Games Workshop colors, I will admit. I don't like the consistency. So, and I still think Vallejo is a nicely pigmented paint. And like I said, I still like a couple of their colors. But, in general, when I do reach for them, I get frustrated. Like, I have to be ready. Like, at that point, if I'm going to reach for a Vallejo, I may as well reach for a Scale 75 artist. Like, and I do. Because I really like this paint. Because I find that the finish of the Scale Color Artist is as closer to MSP than any other paint that I've, hobby paint that I've tried. So I actually use Scale 75's tube paints from time to time on my miniatures. It is probably, after MSP, it is my second favorite paint line. Even though I have to thin it, but at least I come into it knowing that I have to thin it. Because it is a tube paint. Yeah, exactly, Scrying Eye. Yeah, I know, because I had pots from the original release, or bottles from the original release of MSP, and they were still good. We used them as samples to match colors. I'm gonna kind of like fudge some of these since I can't see some of the lines, so I'm gonna try to guess. As long as it looks good, we're good. Runes can be almost, I mean, they aren't really, you don't need to be real precise. But yeah, I mean, dropper bottles in general are going to be pretty good at keeping your paint good, so adding a little water here and there and making sure you shake them. The shaking is more important than the water, in my opinion. Because you're more likely to lose a paint through the resin settling out and latexing into a plug than you are likely to lose a paint from evaporation unless you really don't touch it, or the paint is really thick to begin with. Like some of the metallics, the old MSP metallics when we first started, those definitely, like, after 10 years, you would have to add water. They got very thick. But they were still workable. They weren't bad. they'd just gotten thick. So I'm going to block all these in dark, and then I'm going to kind of finish out the NMM a bit, and then decide whether I want to bring up some glow toward this end where it's getting close to this area or not. It may not work very well on the NMM. Trying to put a light source that's coming up right next to NMM can be problematic because you're already trying to force a light source from above. So then also forcing a second light source from within can be difficult even for me, shall we say. I wanted to talk a bit about that. I get a lot of questions lately. You guys ask me a lot lately. I've noticed, you know, can you use true metallics when you use NMM, you know, and stuff like that. The way to think about it is what's your purpose for using NMM? I mean, a lot of people you want to use it just because it looks cool, right? But the real reason to use it is that you're controlling the lighting. So with metallics, you give that up. You get less work. You have to do less work, right? Because the metallics are going to highlight themselves, so to speak. But you also lose control. So you get less work, but you lose some of your control. Because NMM allows you to completely control the way the lighting is falling on the figure. It lets you completely control where the highlights are. It lets you use those things to direct the eye of the viewer. And so it's all what you're trying to do. It's why I think that you've got to use NMM with glowing effects. I think that comes because what you're trying to do with OSL, you're trying to hard force and sell a glow that isn't there. So we don't have glowing paint yet. So we don't have an equivalent, you know, metallics are the equivalent to NMM, you know, except in real form. We don't have paint that actually glows when you put it on the model yet. I don't know if we ever will. It kind of scares me. But yeah, so if you're already forcing a lighting effect here, why wouldn't you also force a lighting effect there? It tends not to look as good when you give up control in one place and you tighten control in another. It tends to confuse the eye of the viewer. Then the eye of the viewer is like, well, wait, is that just painted lines then? You know, because this is metal, obviously, because it's shiny. So you got to think about effect and control and what you're really trying to do. Yeah, scrying eye, that's the danger. Like, don't trust them on the stainless steel. Like, yeah, exactly. I'm sorry that you lost a batch of your paint to rust, but this is actually why we went glass with Reaper. But yeah, they may go to metal beads with Reaper. I hope they research. That's all I'm saying. New radium pigment line. Let's not go there, M-Pit, right? We don't want to be radioactive. Right. It'll just take a lot of time for the really good stainless, right, Garoth? Like, if you look at, there's a sculptor who's famous for doing huge stainless steel statues that are like nebulous forms. I saw one at, I think it's not Legion of Honor, it's the other one in San Francisco. But even that is rusting. Like, it's outside in the elements, right? So areas of that are rusting. It takes a long time, though, for high-grade stainless. Like, you probably wouldn't have to worry. If you had a really high-grade stainless agitator, I don't think you'd have to worry. But I don't know if it really glows, though, Mathophile. Like, I don't think it actually glows. I don't know. You'd have to have a light reactive and a really strong one, too. Like, even glow in the dark, like phosphorescence, that won't glow in normal light. So. Yeah, don't thin. Right? Exactly, Mighty Garrett. Right. Yeah, it is. It does have a steep learning curve when you're coming from thicker paint lines, and almost everything is a thicker paint line than MSP. But once you get used to it, then you realize you're saving yourself time. Ideally. Ideally, right? That's what I hope as the creator. Oh, boy. Yeah, glass beads are easy to get and very inexpensive. Yeah, right. Oh, good. I'm glad, Mighty Garrett. That makes me feel good. Good. Yeah. I mean, it's paint made by a painter for painters, right? So I just, I was trying to make something that fit my style because nothing else was fitting my style with paint. And most of my friends at that time also were doing, you know, thin layers and glazing and stuff. So, you know, now I think that the painting community, there's a lot more diversity in the styles that each painter uses. But at that time, a lot of us were trying to do these thin effects and we were just fighting with the paint. Like, it just took forever. So yeah, so I'm always glad when I hear a painter say that they love my paint, because it means that we're doing something right. Because you could look at what we're doing and say, well, your Reaper's doing a different thing than everybody else. Why? Why not? Why not? I miss, this or that or the other thing about the paint that I used to use. Why does Reaper have to be different? And it's like, well, I just want to give us options. Because everybody paints differently. Some people really love a heavier bodied paint. Especially if you're doing a lot of wet blending. That can be really useful to you. But for those of us who like to do real thin applications, I think that having a paint that is much easier to get to that level, much faster to get to that level, that likes translucency and doesn't fall out of solution nearly as easily, I think that's definitely something the hobby needs. So I'm glad that we created it. Now I'm blocking in big areas of shadow just as a kind of a trial. Oh, good. Thanks, Liquid Nebula. Yeah, I mean, Wayne Reynolds, who does the covers for Pathfinder's books, uses MSP. We send him, for his paintings, for his 2D paintings, we send him MSP. I always thought that was pretty awesome, because I love his work. But yeah, I mean, that's why so many art companies came out with fluid applications, right? The Liquitex fluid acrylics, all that stuff, is they realized that more people were doing illustrative work than were doing the big built-up texture work with acrylics. And so if you're going to do illustrative or, a cover art, anything like that where you want to use thinner paint applications, you want a more fluid paint. You want a smoother paint. So, hey, Luca. Awesome. Yeah, Justin has been dragged kicking and screaming into a ReaperCon meeting today, Luca, so Reaper Miniatures will see your hello when he comes back. I'm supposed to text him if there's emergency. We're working on, we're just working on Glowy Sword, and I guess I need to get a little more in focus. I keep losing my focal point here. In focus, please.
Just got back.
Oh, yay! Disembodied voice Justin. Well, Luca said hi. And actually, I'm going to put you in my ear now, Justin, that you're back, just so you don't echo to everybody. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's just cool. And thank you, everybody, for coming and hanging out with us. All right, so I'm putting Justin in my ear. Disembodied voice Justin will otherwise echo to all you guys, so give me a second, and then we'll get back to the painting. Justin is in my ear successfully. Excellent. So, for those who have just showed up, I'm working on non-metallic metal gold for this hilt. I've blocked it in. I'm using a slightly different color selection than I do normally, because I wanted very saturated colors, because this sword and the Fire Giant in general is going to be extremely saturated. So very bright is what we mean by the word saturated. Very intense color. And so the echo makes him sound more profound. Oh yeah, Justin was gone is what I said, Miniatures Den, but now he's back, so forget I said anything. Yeah, well, the NMM Gold Triad is good if you're working with any muted colors at all. So it really depends on what you're working on, right? So if you want, because sometimes if you go very yellow and punchy with your gold, it's going to distract from the entire rest of the figure. So that's why you see everybody's got a different recipe for NMM Gold, and every painter usually uses 2 or 3, in my opinion, depending on the other colors on the figure. Because if you go really muted with NMM Gold on a vibrant figure, it's going to look maybe more like brass, not really like gold. But on a different figure, that would look different. So remember, all your colors are going to change, like how they appear will change depending on what else you have next to them. So yeah, and actually the key to the orangey gold is really the ruddy leather as a shader, guys, because these are more yellow and even a little greenish when you add a bit of the rich leather. So again, the colors I'm using, we're doing the Bones NMM, guys, here, Bones NMM. So those are the guys that we've got going on in the palette there. And then the ruddy leather is a core color, and it's a reddish brown, but it's a really nice shader if you want a reddish gold. If you're looking for that reddish Egyptian gold look, which is kind of what I'm going for here, is I'm going for that very intense gold with the reddish underhue. Ruddy leather is a great, thin it down to a glaze and kind of paint it on with your shadow color. So we've got that. I don't know if Bone's black material would work for agitator. I think it needs to be a little bit heavier. But yeah, and then for my darkest shading, I'm using blackened brown, which is 9137, which I love as a shader for NMM Gold, that one. And then some walnut, which is its cousin. They're in the same triad, so if you actually get this triad, you've got a pretty good selection. It's these guys. Plus, they've got intense brown as their next one, and intense brown could be used in place of ruddy leather if you have this triad. So you could use all of this triad for NMM if you buy it in triad form. 91, 36, 37, and 38. So we're doing the runes in the walnut because I wanted them to stand out. I haven't decided if I want some of them closer to the sword to actually glow or not. Doing glowing over non-metallic metal is fraught with peril. You're trying to control the light in two different ways on a shiny surface. It can just drive you mad. So yeah, that's what we're doing. So we're working on, and also I did add a little bit because I wanted this to be so intense. Remember, I added a little bit of yellow to the polished leather to bring it up even more intense. So the color that I'm using to add to my NMM to make it very yellow gold is the lantern yellow, and I'll continue doing that as we work into our highlights. So let's build a highlight color real quick. We are getting on in the stream. So I'm going to start out with like 2 drops of polished leather because I want this to blend well with my previous layer, which is polished leather with just a drop of the lantern. So what I'm going to do now, though, is I'm going to add a lot more lantern, like 2 more drops. So now it's a 50-50 lantern and polished. And to that, I'm going to add, and I'm finally going to bop back to the NMM Gold Highlight, because this is a color worth its weight in gold. Not to pun. But this thing is, if you're like me and you like the scale color artist paint, also the vanilla yellow is a good match for it. But I also, like I said, the NMM Gold Triad is still very useful for models that aren't terribly saturated, that aren't terribly bright colors. So I still like our NMM Gold Triad. But we can use this in place of white to bring up our color a little bit. And let's see how that looks. So that's 2 drops of NMM Gold Highlight, 2 drops of Lantern, and 2 drops of the polished leather. And it's going to give us a color that looks very much like yellow ochre. Well, look at that. That's magic. Which is always a good color to have mixed into your gold. So this color is very similar to the NMM Gold base that we put out in our triad. But I like it a little better for this mix because it is a little bit different. And it has a bit of that polished leather in there, so it's going to hopefully work really well together. When I want colors to work well together, I will always mix a little bit of the one into the other to make it a little easier to layer them up together. Let's see, that one's water is expiring. There, let's get that nice and thinned. Usually when I'm starting out, I usually mix about a 3-to-1, unless I'm doing a base coat. That one started out 4-to-1 paint to water. But when I'm starting out, I'll mix a 3-to-1, and then I'll continue to thin based on the results that I'm getting. Let's see here. Yeah, I mean, the pewter from Reaper is very high tin, guys. So that's why it's very, very high tin. And tin is like fairly indestructible, relatively speaking, right, compared to other stuff. All right, so now I'm going to push these back, and I'm going to start blocking in highlight. I've done all these shadows. I've kind of got my shadows blocked in. Now I'm going to start working with my orangier lights, and I'm going to start bringing in some of these colors. I could have, if I wanted to, not outline those runes and just started highlighting in a big, band. That may have been a little easier, and some of you may want to do that if your brush control isn't quite there yet. But I really wanted to get those runes mapped out because they were looking a little bit muddy to me, and I was afraid that if I continued to paint over them, I might lose some of the definition. So that said, that's why I'm doing it this way instead of just painting highlights and shadow bands and then doing the runes at the end. I kind of wanted to get those lines mapped out while I could see them relatively well. So I want to kind of bring up my highlights here. Remember your basic NMM. This is so basic, and trust me, it'll look okay. It might not look really real. Where you get real with NMM is when you really start thinking about reflections. But for now, for simple NMM, you are actually, let me grab my white and I'll demonstrate this. You're going to figure out where your highlights are, and then you're going to drop a shadow right under them. And then you're going to try to kind of vary up the surface based on what you're seeing. You can have a lot of artistic license with this and still make it look decent. Because, yeah, the really, really, really good NMM has, like, alternating bands of light and shadow in addition to everything else. And really takes into account what's in the environment. I can block this in, though, basically, and then add and subtract some things when I actually bring it in. Because, obviously, like, when you look at this, you're going to get some reflection off of this helmet, aren't you? Right? Because if light is coming down, this is a curved surface, it's going to be reflecting stuff. So I can kind of factor that in as I get further along. But for now, I want to block this in. And we need something to work from. Oh, folk arts. No, don't be embarrassed if you use craft paint. I mean, when you're getting into the hobby, when you're trying to figure out if you actually like it here, folk art isn't terrible. I mean, it's, you know, it's definitely cheap. It lets you grab some paint and put it on a mini and see if you like the hobby. But after that, if you're trying to get good, then craft paint can be difficult just because when you try to use it in some applications, it's going to fight you because it's not highly pigmented. I mean, you pay for what you get with art in general because pigment costs money. And in order to give you that cheap of paint, they're using really cheap pigments and they're not using much of it in those craft paints, guys. And pigment does make a difference. So that's why I always use model paints or tube paints if I'm going to do miniatures. I want something that's highly pigmented, that's got a good base, that's going to hold together, that's made for art, made for what I'm doing, not made for just slapping paint on a wooden chair or whatever, you know, or the little ornament. Diesel, what did SKU for this mini? Oh, thanks. Thanks for the heads up, Gurgi. Here you go, Diesel. He's really awesome. I'm only showing you his top half, too. Here, hold on. Let me get out. There you go. He's raw. And he's monstrous. You can see how big he is. He's way cool. Yeah, we don't make, I mean, you never make much of a margin off of paint, so it's like, I know we don't, so. Yeah, terrain, oh yeah. Yeah, craft paint for terrain all the way. Oh yeah, their color shift is actually good, Scrying Eye. Like, I'll second you on that. I've seen demos of that, and their color shift is good. I was impressed, actually. So yeah, have to say that's turning around nicely. I mean, and it's possible that in time that craft paint will, you know, really improve just because, you know, there's always new advances in technology and paint technology constantly. So let's get back to this. Get in close. And so you know, you always want to try stuff. Just because something kind of sucked 10 years ago, it doesn't mean it's going to suck forever. I think a lot of people make the mistake of that. They're like, yeah, well, I tried this ages ago and it really, really stunk. But it's like, well, those companies want to exist too and get new customers. So if they can find a way to get better without totally increasing their costs, then they'll probably embrace it. So I'm going to put in a little bit of a highlight there so you can see how that makes things look shiny. That's where you're starting to get that look of shiny coming across from this area. And then the other thing with NMM, remember, is reflective. So you've got to show that there's light bouncing back up at this. This is going to be right next to his helmet. There's probably going to be a lot of light bouncing from here to here and some light off of this fur bouncing up. So there's going to be some highlights. So that means down here on the underside, this is way too thick. I need to drop more water in it. Started with 3:1, but then always tune it if you have trouble blending. Add more water. Yes, sometimes things do still suck 10 years later, Star Wars. But you should always try it. You should always give it a chance. Like, I believe in this with both with both items and with people. Like, people, they say that people never change, but that's not strictly true. People can work on themselves. And so even if like, I kind of meet somebody and I'm like, well, but I'll give them a chance again because they may have annoyed me once, but they might not annoy me in the future. Magnetic. Gumby, that's funny. So now we're going to bring up a nice broad highlight because we've got a lot of light bouncing back up at the underside here. And it's also going to bounce up at this little beveled edge down here, remember? So we may bring this up a little lighter than we would otherwise because we've got a source of bounce light so close to it. Now I'm going to keep my tiny shadow edge there, though. We've got to keep that. And I don't want to bring this all the way up to white, but I'll get close. I'll kind of mix a little bit of white with my yellow, my ochre here, my pseudo ochre, since it's not really ochre. And I'm going to concentrate it, yeah, wherever the light's going to get close. It's going to get close down toward the bottom too, so I may need to actually make that bottom edge a lot more reflective right down here at the corner. I may do a couple of reflectives, and this is where you can kind of vary it up. Like we could go and introduce a little band of dark in here and then bring it up to a highlight instead of just doing one long strip of highlight. Oh, lol. Punished. That's funny. Funny and true, right? People change. You gotta give them cred. Gotta give them another chance. To say that people don't change is just to, like, for those of us who really do believe in working on becoming better people, which I think is a lot of us, you know, it really is a slap in the face, you know, to have people just disregard you just because they had a problem with you before. And maybe, you know, you both had issues with each other, but things change. All right, I'm going to bring in some more shadow in there. Yes, who asked about recorded classes? So yeah, David's OSL is on Twitch, so it should go into the archive, so you can watch it afterwards, again, as many times as you'd like. But his bust painting class is Zoom, so it's not going to be. By the way, I understand things. I'm going to do a little bit more of a shadow in here. Taking my red in here. I'm probably going to go with like a hellhound pelt for this this fur here. I was thinking of going black, but I think I might go, I don't know, we'll see. It really kind of depends how I do these shoulder pads. But they may end up with a lot of red in them. Red and blue, black, and gold. So I think since I'm going to use some blue black on there, I'll probably go with reddish brown for the hellhound pelt there, and then it'll reflect that color up here onto the underside of this. Sometimes you gotta think in advance. And like I said, if I decide to change my mind and I decide not to use that color in the future, I can, you know, change this color here with just a little bit of effort. So we're just kind of adjusting. We're kind of working with our shadows and highlights here and trying to make it make sense, right? I think I do want a fairly strong reflected light down here at the bottom because it is going to be pretty close. Yeah, it's going to be really close to the pelt there. See how close those things get? That means that any light that's hitting here is going to bounce right back up onto here. So I do want to get that corner much lighter. I'd say NMM Gold Base is a better one in Ara, or even Ogre. Ogre Flesh from Dungeon Dwellers. Palomino works too, but if you want it bright, if you want it intense like this, I would add some yellow to it. Palomino is pretty much a straight up yellow ochre, but it is, because it doesn't have any yellow in it, it's a little bit less intense than what I have mixed here. So this, adding that, just add a drop of like lantern yellow or marigold to it, maybe 2 drops. Depending on how saturated you're going, right? If you're going for a less saturated gold, more brassy, then you can use the Palomino straight up. For a long time before we got our NMM Gold Triad, the Palomino Buckskin Chestnut Gold Triad really was our answer for NMM Gold. But when I was talking with Bryce and Jeffrey and some of the Golden Demon winning guys I knew, they were talking about doing more saturated, like Egyptian gold for demi-Egyptian models like Khemri and Nefsekar and stuff like that. And they wanted a much more yellow and reddish gold. And so then we started working on the NMM Gold Triad, specifically based off of their suggestions and some paint samples that they had. Yeah, sorry if I'm missing... I'm missing some questions because I'm trying to be educational. Oh no! Trying to figure out where you... Come on, scroll, chat! Chat is not scrolling for me. Yeah. Automama's correct, Magnetic Gumby. The thing is that people like me, I can make the one class that I haven't ever done anything on for the Patreon, right? But when this is your living, because the Patreon really is my living, to do a class that is the same class you would teach, like, locally maybe for, money and it's your income, to have that and have it up for free forever, just really is problematic. So, I mean, not all of our painters do this for a living, but a fair number of them do. So I definitely, in order to teach on Twitch, I put my head together with myself and said, hey, what can I teach that I actually would like to have as a reference forever online? So I chose to teach a very nuts and bolts class because now that helps me actually even teach my other classes, because I can say, hey, you can go online and get this for free. But I don't want all my stuff. Thanks, Gergie. Thank you for watchdogging. But I don't want all my material up for free if I'm trying to make a living with my Patreon and with classes and with all the rest of it. And that's, it's not just me with that consideration. So a lot of, like, Mocha does a lot of Twitch and stuff like that, and those of us who do these sort of things, even if we're not making our sole living from it, which I am, we still, depend on that little bit of that extra money from time to time. So it's a nice balance. I think that what Reaper is doing is a nice balance. You still get some free classes, which you've never gotten before, as far as ReaperCon goes. And we still get to kind of protect our IP and still help people and still teach, So I think this is the best solution. And I think this, as they were talking about earlier, I think this would be a good thing for Reaper in the future if every ReaperCon we had a few free classes on Twitch, so that people who can't make it still get the chance to learn some stuff. But, that leaves it up to the instructor, like, well, if you're going to do a free class, what would you like to teach? What do you want to be available forever for free? All right, so we're working this up, and I'm keeping this up. This is a very dark, rich gold, as you can see. I'm not introducing a lot of yellow yet. I'm kind of being real cautious about my yellows and how I'm introducing them. I've got a lot of red and brown in this gold, so it's looking very, very deep. Like, it's really complex gold, actually. I haven't used this exact recipe before, but I'm liking how it's looking. Yeah, in-class instruction is different and important, but you're always going to have that chunk of people who say, oh, well, I can just take this class for free. Why would I ever pay in person? So it's a balance, right? It's a balance. Yeah. Yeah, we could do. Yeah, I mean, we could charge money for the online classes as well in the future, I suppose, But yeah, this is all stuff that Reaper will have to figure out what works for them and what works for the artists. You just never know. But at least now we'll kind of have the outline for an online class presence, right, Justin? We'll have done it. So Justin's probably working on other things. So I'm bringing my yellow up. I'm sneaking it more up here. The more yellow, the lighter I bring this area, the more it's going to imply that light is bouncing off this area. And I don't want to ever bring it up to white. I want my brightest highlights to be reserved for white. But it can come up to near white, and it should. Because in order for this to look really shiny, it needs to be close. You need to bring up that reflective light. So I'm going to hit this little divot here because light would absolutely catch on the bottom edge of that. And it would catch and bounce on the bottom edge of this. And you can either mix your like ochre color, your palest yellow, with your white to get this, or you can just thin your white down to the point where it's translucent and layer it over the areas that you want to be close to white but not quite. And if it's translucent, then some of the yellow will still show through and it won't be as bright as your intense highlights up top. You can always do it. You can also do what a lot of other painters do, which is to use like a tube paint or a very, very strong paint to do spot highlights on their highest highlights. And I'm going back and forth between my ochre and my polished leather mix to get some of these yellows and golds. Yeah, we try to get quality people to teach. It's hard though. I mean, I bet at those big tech conventions, I mean, the emphasis is probably on, offering a lot of content so that it's worth everybody's while. I doubt they can vet everybody. It takes a lot of time and energy to like try to make sure that you've got quality instructors. So there, you see how that light, now this light is coming up. Now it's starting to look shiny, right? Down here, it's looking shiny and reflective. These are our two qualities of good NMM. Put a little bit of a highlight there. Got a shadow on that upper edge. I don't know that that would be true, so I need to highlight that. So yeah, hopefully this is giving you guys some ideas for a kind of a different NMM gold color selection. Like I say, we all have like I swear every painter has like 2 or 3 different recipes minimum, and we'll all give you different suggestions. We all have different likes and dislikes, and sometimes it changes by the model. Do kind of a little bit of light right there instead of a shadow, because this would definitely have light falling on this corner and would have a shadow right under it. Remember, so that's what we've got there on the one side, and we'll put one on the other side as well. But I'm going to use my ruddy leather on this other side. Yeah, that does happen. Sadly, we try to make a high quality convention. Reaper does. The fact that the focus in our convention is instruction, is classes, I think makes a big difference. So see, we just started out with this basic thing, but now that we're bringing it's the highlights that make it, guys. The highlights that make your NMM look great. Always, if you think your NMM doesn't look right, question whether you're taking your highlights up almost to white and to pure white on your highest areas. Yeah, it depends on the con. I agree with you, Otter Mama. It really does. I think the bigger the convention gets, the more likely you are to get some speakers that maybe aren't as good. Just because when you've got a really huge convention, like I said, it gets harder to vet every speaker. And you may get somebody who comes recommended, like from their company, but who isn't actually that great of a teacher. You can also get really knowledgeable people who just aren't really good at teaching. I mean, that's a thing, right? So this person may actually be the most qualified person to give this seminar, but they may not be a very good teacher. And you run into that in every field too, I think. There are plenty of miniature painters who are amazing, but who aren't very good teachers. Happily, we also have amazing miniature painters who are good teachers. So I talked to Sergio about that when he was doing his seminar in our area. You want to strive to be a good teacher as well as a good painter if you're going to do classes. Yeah, I can believe that, Magnetic Gumby. At that point, they're just pushing somebody's agenda, right? And that's always something to beware. So here we are, and I'm going to bring up this bottom area a bit now. Just a touch. I want to keep my shadow there. With a big broad area underneath like this, you can kind of fudge a bit and Just kind of make a blend and try to figure out kind of where your shadows and highlights are going to go. You need to make some variance here. Some variation. Oops, I went a little bit too... I went black and brown there instead of my red. So you need to break up this area because it is a big chunk, right? And it would be broken up in normal reflections. So I'm going to say like that, and maybe I'm going to come over here a bit and drop a kind of a little bit of a shadow underneath this blade because it might actually be, if I make it glowy like that, then I almost need to drop a highlight right here. So, but for now, we're just going to block in some red just to break things up. So I'm always adjusting. Hey, Roll to Explode, what's up? Hey, and thank you for the raid. Yeah, we're doing, here guys, new people, new raidy people, look at, we're doing a fire giant sword. It's pretty cool. Been doing it for a few days. We started out doing the cracks, and then I did kind of the glowing look on the edge and the little fireflies and sparks. And then today I'm talking about doing gold on the hilt here, and we're using a slightly different color set than I usually use for non-metallic metal to do a gold effect. So, yeah. And we're talking about conventions also. just as an aside, our chat has been about the quality, how hard it is to sometimes find high quality education at conventions, and about ReaperCon, and about, you know, how Reaper tries to make sure that the instruction is high quality and all this kind of stuff. Having been one of the key people to develop ReaperCon back in the day, before it got so huge and before I got totally buried in the paint department, I can say that running a large convention is really difficult. It's very time consuming. There are so many things to figure out, little things that you never think about until it's like later and you're like, oh my gosh, we should have thought about this ages ago. Kind of stuff like that. Yeah, Dragon White can be used for NMM. It's not as highly pigmented as pure white. It's a little bit of a different take on white. I would say actually that the HD white, solid white, would be an even better one. That white is a bit harsher, just a little bit. Its base is different, and it allows the pigment to look just a little bit different in it. So that's a thought. But any white will work. I mean, just make sure that your strongest white are at your strongest highlights, which are going to be wherever your light source is coming down on, which is usually at the top. Unless you're trying to do some clever lighting effect. So we're just kind of futzing and building stuff up. I'm putting down highlights where there should be highlights, and I'm trying to make sure that there are shadows under them so that we get that shiny effect. That's how you create a faux shiny effect. And with a lot of this, I am using pure white, but then I'm blending it with a little bit of my yellow ochre color. So there you get that light falling down on both sides because it would fall down. So you get that shiny, shiny look. And this is a much richer gold than I typically do, but I wanted something that would go well with the bright oranges on the sword. And I think it's going very well, so I'm very happy with it right now. It's not a very light gold. It's actually reading almost as a... I don't know, it's really rich. I'm going to have to work with it a bit more and see what I can do with it. I like it. It could be a little lighter, but if he's in a dark kind of shadowy room with a lot of firelight, then actually this is pretty correct. You just don't get tired of watching paint dry. Well, that's good. I'm glad people don't get tired of watching paint dry, because otherwise my show would be abandoned and none of you would stick around. Oh yeah, I mean, that's interesting. Yeah, I haven't seen Acid Drop's NMM gold. But I was saying Roll to Explode is that every painter that I know has at least 2 or 3 recipes for NMM gold, and they use them on different models depending on the other colors on the model. And all of us have different recipes. So you, although it's become more fashionable to put out pre-made colors for this to make it a little easier when people first start it, when you talk to somebody like a more like a professional painter or somebody who paints all the time, they're probably going to have their own recipe. They'll almost always have developed their own recipe.
All right, Miss Anne.
Yeah. Are you here?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I invoked you earlier a little bit, and then you did not respond, so I thought you were busy with stuff.
Sorry, I was back and forth. Since I'm up here, I'm in high demand.
Okay, just remember to look for my dragons and other big box
Yes.
sets. That's all I ask. Just then we can put our heads together and figure out what models. Just like look at for three. You know what a cool model looks like. Look for awesome models that we could do. What
Oh,
people.
I'll look for awesome models.
All right, awesome, fantastic. Because we got more subs this time. Because of course, the minute I mentioned to them that we were within 10 of our AMA, Numbat dropped like a 5 gift sub bomb. So I'm sure that we're very, very close now, if not at our 100 subs to trigger our AMA. So you'll have to count those up and make sure.
All right.
And then we can schedule it. Maybe we could even schedule it for this Friday if we look at it fast. But
Yeah,
I don't know if you
potentially
can.
could. Yeah.
Yeah, if we can verify. I always want to verify that we actually have the number of subs that we want.
And I would say too, for everyone here, since we're so close, go ahead and get your questions into the Discord for the AMA too,
Yeah.
so Anne can have time to sift through them.
Yes, yes, yes.
But I would say it's about that time to wrap up because I have to go and run some errands.
Okay, super. Well then, guys, remember, go to our Reaper Discord and go to the Ann AMA channel and drop your questions. I saw a lot of really good questions building up in there, so that's fantastic. Drop your painting questions in there and I will answer them. We'll schedule the AMA. If Justin has time today to just verify we've got 100 subs, then we can schedule it for this Friday, so 2 days from now. And on that Friday, we will do a giveaway with our AMA. Okie dokie. And there's my golds. My gold is turning out pretty well. I like it. It's really deep and really rich, actually. I really like it. So let's zoom out a bit and let's put this on there. Didn't get quite a lot done, but yeah, that looks shiny. He's gonna be so shiny when he's done. Yay! Rawr, he says. Rawr. There we go. So yeah, thanks for tuning in, guys. Just a reminder, I'll probably be streaming on my own channel on Twitch, twitch.tv/paintingbig, later this afternoon, like around maybe 4 p.m., 4:30 Central Time. And then on my Patreon is patreon.com/paintingbig, and I'm on there teaching things. So if you like my instruction here, have a gander at that. There is some free content for you to look at. Yeah, otherwise, this afternoon, what do we have going on, Justin? Anything?
Nothing on our Twitch, but I
Okay.
have a bunch going on here.
Okay, okay. I wasn't sure if Luca was going to be in for doing a Reaper thing yet or not. So.
No, he'll likely his show will not have an appearance until after ReaperCon.
Okay.
I want
Oh,
to make
that's
sure
right.
we can brand it and stuff. It needs the proper time and effort.
Yeah, it does look like WoW art. It isn't. Doesn't. I've been thinking about Shadowlands a lot lately. Image. That's it. Okay, so cool. Well then, I'll just be streaming on my own channel. Come on over and hang out, guys. I don't know what I'm gonna work on whatever I feel like working on. How about that? And then yeah, we'll see you guys later. Thanks for tuning in, and I hope you all have a great Wednesday. We are almost. It's a couple more days to the weekend, guys. A couple more days to the weekend. Have fun.
All right, guys. Thank you very much for coming out. We always appreciate seeing your bright, shining, and beautiful faces. Um, yes, we're going to be rating Sky Daddy, and make sure you say hi to her because she's looks like she's doing some crazy galaxy stuff with Steven. Looks like Steven Universe. So, thank you very much for coming out again. Keep being awesome. Spread the Reaper love, and I will see you guys 11:30 tomorrow. Be there, be square. Thank you guys very much. Have a great day.